Running is the past, passing is the future. With completion percentages across the NFL continuing to rise, your average handoff seemed destined for the dustbin of inefficient history, nestled in between the mid-range jumper and the sacrifice bunt. As we enter the second decade of the 21st century, the running back position in the NFL continues to change in its importance on field and both monetarily off field in terms of contract value. For my project, I decided to predict 2021 NFL running back salaries using rushing yards and receiving yards as predictors. I then tested the hypothesis that receiving yards were more important monetarily to NFL franchises than rushing yards. Some description of the data. This data consists of observations of performance which were carried out during the 2020 to 21 NFL season. The data also consists of financial observations of publicly available player average salaries for the 2021 season. I chose average salary over a couple different salary variables for the 21 season because all of the other different variables could be adjusted by injury, could also be increased by performance on field in terms of bonuses. So the average salary is just the salary that they will be making 100% for the 2021 season. A sample of then 30 of the highest salaried running backs for the 2021 season was taken from a population of 499 total players. So this is the sample data set that we ended up with. I had to trim 6 of the players out of the initial 30 player set due to them not playing in more than 50% of the games. So they had a lack of data for the 2020 season. So like I said, we ended up with 24 total observations. Statistical modeling, a general linear multiple regression model was fit and used to predict salary, including predictors rushing yards and receiving yards. I then conducted 3 different kinds of analyses, including descriptive statistics, ANOVA analysis, as well as residual analysis. There's 3 variables in this model: independent variable of 2021 salary, the rushing yards for the 2020 season, and the receiving yards for the 2020 season. Other dependent variables, including rushing touchdowns, receiving touchdowns, and yards after contact, were left out of this model due to the significance. Both anything other than rushing and receiving yards had fairly high P and T values, showing that they were insignificant. As well, putting those variables into the model did not change the R-square value at all. So I chose to just go primarily with rushing and receiving yards by themselves. Some descriptive statistics here is that the mean salary for the sample is $5,919,000 for the year. The mean rushing yards for the year is 739.3, and the mean receiving yards for the sample of running backs is 250.7. Derrick Henry holds the maximum rushing yards, while Alvin Kamara holds the maximum receiving yards, and both of these players are included in the top 5 overall salaries. Some regression statistics. Like I said, the R-square value stayed at around 0.66, no matter what other variables other than rushing and receiving yards that I put in there. So this was an acceptable fit for the model due to the nature of financial decisions, as well as the amount of variables that were included in this model. The ANOVA analysis deemed that the model was overall significant, and then the coefficients deemed that salary is expected to increase by $6,150 for each additional rushing yard a player has during the season, and is also expected to increase by $11,218 for each additional receiving yard. Then I did a residual analysis, which just gave me predicted salaries based on the model for the 2021 season and compared those against the actual salaries. There was one outlier in this model, and it was observation number 1, Ezekiel Elliott, where his standard residual is 2.716. Like I said, Elliott was observed as an outlier with an extremely large residual. As well, Alvin Kamara was had the highest receiving yards for this year, but his contract was still considered unusual by the model, but by a much smaller margin than Elliott's. In conclusion, Alvin Kamara and Ezekiel Elliott are tied for the highest salary, and one of them is considered to be highly overpaid and an outlier, while the other one is considered still an outlier, but much smaller of a value. And this could be because of Kamara's over 300 receiving yards more than Elliott during the 2020 season. Also, Derrick Henry has the most rushing yards in a record season in 2020, and the model predicted that his contract was only $200,000 off. Finally, Cordell Patterson, the running back for the Chicago Bears, was paid almost 2 times his worth this year, according to the model, based on the fact that teams view Patterson as a running back who is also available to play as the wide receiver position. So that could show why he was so overpaid. In conclusion, receiving yards do have a larger contractual impact than rushing yards. However, franchises continue to pay top dollar for rushing performances as well. So in conclusion, while both of these performance factors show high importance, we can confirm that the hypothesis that receiving abilities are financially more valuable in today's NFL is true.